Let's move on to the champion hurdle, the championship race on the Tuesday. I suppose maybe we should start by having a look at last year, should we? I mean, I suppose that's a sensible thing to do because, of course, Binocular, who was dead, buried, out of the race, came and won.
To be fair, man, he injured his back last year, to be fair.
So Binocular winning the race last year from Khyber Kim. Moral of that story, if like me you back Khyber Kim anti-post all the way up to the festival, do put in a lay and leave it during the race, because then you would make money instead of losing money. He's been in Ireland, Binocular. He hasn't been in his box at Nicky Henderson's, has he? He's been in Ireland doing whatever they did to him last time. So what's the word from Ireland? What does he do at Martinstown? Does he just get a nice massage or what?
Yeah, I have to say I'm not very sure, other than to say that I'm aware he's not at Henderson's. It sounds a bit peculiar to me that you'd send a horse to a relative retirement home a few weeks before Cheltenham. I don't know, but it's...
You'd never stand for it, would you, Paul? Somebody turns up and says, we're taking him over just for a wee break, he'll be back when we're ready.
It's that Guinness they give him.
Yeah.
It works for
I'd like to know what it was. No, I don't know. Has he been in Ireland this year? Has he?
I didn't actually know that.
First I've heard about that. Has he been in Ireland?
Well,
there was rumour. I'm told that at Nicky's Open Day they pulled one out that looked like Binocular.
Yeah.
But
he didn't look like
I don't know. I hadn't heard that. Had you?
I hadn't heard that, actually.
Look, we're all...
I do know that he worked well last weekend.
Okay, it's a slightly...
This is but in England.
In England.
This is the reigning champion. We don't even know what country he's in.
No. Well,
I mean, we know he's back now.
Last Friday he was electrifying over his hurdles, and a Saturday morning he worked in Lambourne and he was good. Okay. And that's what you need to hear when Binocular at this time of year.
And the Martinstown massage has done its trick.
The one thing we want to know with Binocular, when it drifted like a barge when it got beat at Newbury, is the fact that JP backed it on Saturday. That's the most important thing you want to know about Binocular.
Well, you do want to know when he's back there, I suppose. On the subject of Binocular, a reproduction of that form, would it be good enough, Kieran, given what he's up against this year?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you watch that, the sheer visual impression, from 3 out, he was always going to win. Yes, there's more strength in depth to this champion hurdle, but what there isn't is a horse who's posted a higher figure than what he achieved. He's clearly shown his best form under these very conditions. It's pretty nasty from a punter's point of view, to be honest, where there's all this to-in and throw-in, and it was pretty naughty at Newbury, where he was so palpably not fit that, I mean, he virtually trebled in price. It doesn't make for very pretty viewing, but he's the best horse under these conditions. But do I really trust the whole sort of project and connections enough to go steaming in?
How often has he run to that mark in his career?
He's run to it twice, but it was his standout, his narrowly best was last time.
Nicky Henderson spoke to us about Binocular a couple of weeks ago. Whether he was actually in his box at the time or not, I'm not sure. But let's see what the trainer had to say.
He takes plenty. He's just sort of, he's about weight-wise, he's absolutely spot on. And he seems in really good form in himself, so we've just got to sort of, like all of them really, it's just getting through the last 3 weeks. They've work to do, you can't lock them up, and I'd love to shut them in the box and say, see you in 3 weeks' time, but you can't. You've got to, they've got to do work.
But it is a great race. Jumping, of course, is Binocular's forte. He's brilliant to watch over his hurdles.
He is. I mean, that's the hallmark of a champion hurdler. And there's, any of those guys that have won back-to-backs and 2 or 3 champion hurdles, the one thing they can do is cross a hurdle very, very quickly. And this fellow, when he's really on song, he's fantastic at it.
Did you say that was long run?
Yeah,
nuzzling up to him. You recognise him just from that shot? Or were you there?
No, he had the brow band. He had Whaley Cohen's brow band on.
Oh, right,
easy.
Okay. Coloured brow band. On the subject of Nicky Henderson and Binocular, the vibe is good.
I've done a few of these previews, and I have to say, early last week I was actually tipping up Menorah I think that's the Supreme Novice form. I think it's going to hold up. And coming up the hill on similar ground, I like Minora's chances very much. But it's starting to hear the Seven Barrows little rumours, and they're starting to get really happy again. Then you start to think about last year. Hold on, Binocular was a good champion hurdle winner. It may not have been. They're now I'm going at these panels. They're knocking last year's champion hurdle, but going into the race, it was a competitive race. Khyber Kim came out and won the Grade 1 at Aintree afterwards. Fair enough. Those horses just behind him haven't done much this season. I appreciate, but it was a good champion hurdle going into it, and I don't think we should underestimate what he did last year. No. So I think I'm a negative on old Hurricane Fly. They were giving me all this in Galway on Monday night, how Hurricane Fly is this, that, and the other.
What's your negative on him?
My negative is he's a manger. He won't like coming up that hill, and he does want softer ground, I think.
It's a fact that I don't think a single Mangeur has won, has it, at the festival so far? No, and what's that down to? Is that a physical thing? Is it a mental thing?
Well, on the flat, they feel that they've got lots of class, but they're a bit soft for a fight. And look, there's always going to be one that changes the system, but
some of them win or go close to winning without getting in too big a fight, though, don't they?
And I think Hurricane Fly's had it too easy for too long, and he won't relish a fight. Come to the bottom of that hill, there'll be some fighters in there more than him.
Can he get to the line without getting in a fight?
Yeah, I mean, at that preview night, some people were saying Hurricane Fly is a certainty. Others were saying Binocular is a certainty. Like, how can you say any of these horses is a certainty? They haven't run against each other. We don't know how good Minora is. We don't know how good Peddler's Cross is. Nobody's even talking about the pace of the race. Binocular, that race couldn't have gone better for him last year. And I don't rate that for him. I really don't. With Paul Keeley telling me, they were all rated this and that. Like, with all due respect, Celestial Halo was up there. Zaynar, Khyber Kim. I don't rate that for him. I don't think Hurricane Fly will win the race. But we don't know how good he is. All we know is he can beat Solwit.
Talking about the pace of the race, how do you see it? How do you see it unfolding? Well, it might suit something like Peddler's Cross.
I got nearly a pint over my head for suggesting 1,000 Stars is only in the race to make it a good gallop, and somebody else is tipping the horse up to win the race, which is completely ludicrous. I mean, this horse shouldn't be running in this race at all. Like if you remember, you go back to Conor O'Dwyer and Hardy Eustace when he basically just dictated to a peach when he beat the grey of Philip Hobbs, whose name escapes me, Rooster Booster. If Peddler's Cross were to get quite a soft lead, Binocular is not, to me, Binocular is flattered by that run last year.
And Peddler's Cross has that similar profile, doesn't he?
He grind and grind and grind. If Binocular, I don't think Binocular is going to get it his own way like he did last year, and I don't rate that for him.
Okay. I think Peddler's Cross, the owner's got Overturn in the race to make a pace. I'm sure that's, and you can't let Overturn get away from him because he is quite a good horse. So I think that there will be a strong pace. I think Overturn will make the run in for Peddler's Cross.
1,000 Stars a pacemaker or
I hope not.
quite a decent horse?
I hope not. I think it's a very good animal. I thought the County Hurdle was a good race to win. Rooster Booster won the County. I agree with what Johnny says about last year's form, and I think it's worth a carrot. I really don't. It was with Paddy Brennan last night. And he was
champion hurdle.
Again, it's a different. There's different horses in it this year. They're much better animal. I think it's for me the race of the festival. How anybody can say Hurricane Fly and Woodin won't come up the hills? Absolutely unbelievable. We've got no proof of it, as Johnny says. Nobody knows. And people are saying it's a good thing. People want to lay it for the lot. As a punter, I don't say you can be so adamant about something you haven't seen.
I think the one thing about Hurricane Fly, we look at other Monjous, Noble Prince. To me, he may well have dogged it the last day at Leopard Sound. I never worry about him at the festival. Hurricane Fly has come from being off for basically a year to win a Grade 1. And he's had to battle. He has had to battle. If you look at his first run this year against Solwit, he pulled about a length and a half clear in the last 100 yards. I can't question his resolution. And remember about this horse, his flat form is very good. And secondly, this is the first year they've actually had a clear run.
And also, I'm a massive respect for Willie Mullins, and Willie's always said it's a good horse. And I don't say you can say it won't or will not. I think, I love playing him running. I'm going to back this and trade out in running because I think he'll travel like the Rafa got coming round the bend. Ruby always looks good on a hold-up animal. He sometimes thinks he's going better than he is.
I don't know if Ruby will be riding him.
Yeah, I'm going to say I think Paul Townend might be riding it.
I'd bet Paul Townend, to be honest.
My information is Ruby will ride. What do you think, Paul?
I'm not asking him about that, but I think Ruby thinks he's going to ride most of them if he can, but has any decision been made?
No, there hasn't, but I think that what we were hearing when we were in Galway.
Well, if you look at it at this perspective, and Paul was just saying earlier on, Ruby, even since we were last talking, things have taken another backward step. So for Paul Townend, who's such a relationship with this horse, for me, I think Willie wants Paul Townend to ride him. But there's obviously, I think
just on that related subject, because we need to wind up this race in a minute. Does Willie Mullins want Paul Townend to be the top jockey if he can?
Top jockey in
Cheltenham. Is he going to get on a lot of these Mullins horses, do you think?
No, I think Ruby will have pretty much first choice, except this. I think this one's a bit of an exception.
No disrespect to Paul Townend, but Ruby was a different class at Cheltenham. Paul hasn't ridden that much.
Yeah, but Ruby's got a lot to do. To be fair, he got buried yesterday. He's out of form. He hasn't ridden the winner. Ruby's got a long way to go to get back to form, hasn't he? You know.
What's the latest, by the way? Because we all saw him taking a ride
tomorrow. If you had the choice, would you put up a Ruby Walsh or Paul Townend then?
A fit Ruby Walsh you'd have. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Ruby had a horrific fall yesterday, couldn't ride tomorrow, he's hoping to ride Saturday. Is that what you want just before the festival?
Well, it's a choice that you will face as well, Paul.
I know it is, and it is a big question. But we want to see him ride a winner Saturday, but, you know, to be fair to Ruby, he's coming back from a big injury, and it's you know, from my point of view, Willie's point of view, you hit the nail on the head. It's a difficult. Paul Townend's a brilliant young jockey, he's fitting well. Yeah, Ruby's Ruby, but he has been injured and he's not in form.
So that could be a tricky conversation with Ruby, couldn't it? Well, you're not getting on.
It'll be interesting to see what happens on the weekend. Of course it's a tricky situation. It'd be nice to see him go to Sandown Saturday, ride a couple of winners, back to his best, but he's got to do it, hasn't he?
What has he got to do to convince you?
Well, you'd like to see him ride a winner, and, you know, having had that fall yesterday, it just makes it more and more difficult, doesn't it? And I mean, there's got to be a doubt in everybody's mind.
But he'll tell you he's A1, presumably, won't he?
Of course he will. But it's for me and people to make a judgment. But, I mean, to be fair, it's a difficult one. It is a difficult one.
It's like a football thing, isn't it? Wayne Rooney's always telling Alex Ferguson he's fine. I'm fine.
Of course he will. But you will have to make that decision. But many of us would be surprised that if, you know, even if he was 80% fit, we'd still assume you'd be legging him up on all of yours.
You can't leg him up 80% fit. He's got to be 100% fit.
Okay.
And just in Galway as well, the word from Patrick Mullins was that Willie hasn't made his mind up. And for me, he's already perpetuating doubt there. And we know that Ruby has a relationship with Paul Nicholls and Willie Mullins. In my view, you know, Willie Mullins has every right to say, I want Paul Townend on this horse, and I think that's what will happen.
Let's get a final word on this race from each of you. We'll start with you, Johnny. A final word on the champion hurdle. Where would your money go?
Just as I was saying, I don't think it's possible to have a very definite view on this race, and that's the beauty of it. I think it's the race of the festival. I'm a massive fan of Peddler's Cross, I have to say.
Okay, and he might get the race to run to suit. Couch?
I've laid Peddler's Cross. I'm up to my eyeballs in him. I think the form's garbage. I didn't think he jumped very well at Kelso at all. You watched the video of last year's run at Cheltenham. He got outpaced. He didn't jump very well. I can't have him at any price. I'm sorry.
Finished, all right.
Again, he was 12-1 before he ran it. Everything's about prices. Everything's a price, you know, with me. Everything. And he was 12-1 before he ran at Newbury. As we all know, blatantly unfit Binocular. He beat Starluck a couple of lengths, and he went from 12-1 to 9-2. He shortened up that much, and I just think he's a terrible price.
Okay. Getting Peddler's Cross. Anthony, I don't know whether you asked you.
I don't know where I finally came. No, I did talk about Binocular.
Plump for Binocular in the end?
I think I'll probably plump for Binocular. I'd just throw in there that horses that won at the Cheltenham Festival previously should be followed every year because the tempo of the race is so different to all the trials. Hurricane Fire would never have been in a tempo of this calibre, this race. And there are 4 Cheltenham Festival winners from last year in this race coming up. And I tell you what, it's a tough one to call. And you've got 1,000 stars in the county hurdle winner. You've got Minora, you've got Binocular, and you've got Peddler's Cross. And it is an epic champion hurdle.